Recently, the governor sat down for an extended interview. I asked him what he'd do if he were president.
What do you do if he
And
was
I asked him
president?
about some things he did in Florida. Here's our full interview. I'm not going to waste time asking if you're going to run for president. You're not going to tell me here. But I should point out that the betting odds say if you did and you got nominated, your chance of winning the presidency are better than Trump's, and you're likely to beat Biden.
Well, look, I mean, I think
Nice.
people will talk about this polls, that polls, primary polls.
The betters are better than polls.
No, exactly. But I think the one thing that we have seen, and again, it's a long way off how much you want to put into it, but in all these swing states, I actually beat Biden, Georgia, Arizona. They had a poll in Michigan, some of these states that are necessary to win the Electoral College. Those same polls have Biden beating Trump. So I think that's part of why you see some of those betting odds. But one thing I can say, because the polls are fine, election results are actually the most indicative. And in Florida, we came in 4.5 years ago, swing state, evenly divided. We
like how
win
you're
by
so
half
humble.
a percent. And then after 4 years of good leadership, we were able to win by almost 20 points, 1.5 million votes. And those are not just Republicans. I mean, we're happy that we've got a lot of Republicans that support us and we have got a strong base, but we're winning decisively amongst independents. We won
He's talking a lot.
60% of Hispanics. And that's really, I think, the type of coalition that you need to build to be able to win nationally.
What
Yeah, he's
caused
pretty
that
nervous.
probably was COVID. And you did a good job with COVID.
Well, but I think what's instructive about that is all those decisions I was making, I was pilloried for by the corporate press, by the left, by people in the administration, by bureaucrats, even by some Republicans, at the time were saying
Everybody
that I
was
was
your
wrong.
case.
I was taking a lot of incoming.
The cases were exploding, and he decided to just sit back and do nothing.
We have officially entered Florida airspace. As Governor DeSantis stated, while you're within state lines, you do not have to wear a mask.
And so I just had to make the decision
Damn.
as a leader. Are you going to worry about kind of
Crazy.
the daily news cycle? Are you going to worry about your personal popularity? Are you going to focus on protecting the jobs and freedoms of the people you represented? And so I resolved, I did not know how it was going to work out politically, but I was going to do what I thought was right. And I think what happened was, as time wore on, people are like, you know what? Florida's doing it right. We're thankful to be here. This guy saved my job. He saved my business. He kept my kid in school. And so I do think we had a lot
I
of
can
support.
go out to a beach. I can go to a restaurant. I don't have to wear a mask all the time. And there were no more deaths. There were fewer deaths.
Yeah,
than
so
New
we
York.
actually had, if you look at excess mortality, we were the lowest in the Sun Belt, and we were lower excess mortality than California and New
Wow.
York. And the thing about
I didn't
excess
even know that.
mortality is, yes, it includes COVID deaths,
I didn't
but
even
the
know that.
lockdowns caused other deaths too. And so the fact that people were free to make their own decisions here, overall, they were healthier, because it's not healthy to tell someone they should be in their home and not come out for weeks or months on end. You want to be out and about and be normal. And so I think from a mental health perspective, from an education perspective, obviously from an economic perspective, we did so much better than a lot of the lockdown states.
But
True.
the media was loving Governor
True.
Cuomo and all over your case. CNN, Don Lemon.
Some governors are putting their own political gain ahead of children's lives. They want to protect kids, Governor. What do you want?
They want to protect kids,
Trash.
Governor.
Don
What
Lemon
do
is
you
trash.
want?
It's funny because Don Lemon, big critic always, the minute he could escape the New York lockdowns, where did they find him? They found him in
Florida.
South Florida. They
Wow,
found governors
what a hypocrite.
who locked down in Florida. Mayors in big cities would come down to Florida. So some of that, I think, was just a charade.
Gavin Newsom is trash.
But I think that's an interesting quote, because when we had kids in school, that's exactly what the critics were saying. They were saying we were putting the children at risk by having them in school because there was a virus that didn't cause them any significant risk. So the damage to the kids was locking them out of school. And now we've seen, now the people look back and they'll acknowledge the damage, but what they're trying to say, particularly in the corporate press, let's not cast blame. Let's just move on. Let's not do it. No, we need to cast blame. The people that wanted to lock the kids out of school were wrong. They did a lot of damage, and probably as much damage as policymakers have done in the modern history of this country. We stood against all of them, and we were right to do so.
Many states had mask mandates.
Yeah, we never mandated masks in the state of Florida. You had some local jurisdictions
Yeah,
that did. So what
COVID-19
I did, I
was
used my
trash.
clemency power to say, no penalties for wearing a mask or not. It's your choice. And so you actually had some local police departments that were going to fine people in like Miami for not wearing a mask. So we kneecap them with our clemency power. And then with the schools, we said it's a parent's choice whether they want to send their kid with a mask or not. So we were able to overrule a lot of the school districts and let kids go to school mask free.
Great, but let me push back. I'm confused by how you do things. You want to prohibit masking requirements at businesses, all businesses. But if it's my business and I'm scared and I want to have that, why can't I?
Well, look, I think it's an issue with COVID. What was happening is you had some big corporations that were basically imposing a Fauciism, vax mandates, mask mandates. And what we've had to say is, you know what? Your personal freedom to make these decisions in Florida is going to be respected. So we barred the vax mandates and said that's your choice. And the same thing with the mask. The mask, even Fauci's now admitted the mask. He said maybe 10% reduction. So some of it is irrational. And I think you just have to decide, yes, your business, you do have freedoms to choose, but so do individuals. So do you side with the individual or do you side with the corporation? And so on these biomedical issues in Florida, we've just consistently sided with the individual.
But it's my business. If I have a candy store and I want to say you have to stand on your head to buy my candy.
Yeah, but I mean, you know businesses, there's certain business regulations that we all have to, everyone's got to abide by in terms of
I'm
who
just
you can
surprised
employ.
you're pushing them.
Well, no, but I mean, some of it is just kind of standard workplace stuff. And so the issue is just as a customer, is that something that we want to support from the customers or not? And I think part of it is we really view the biomedical regime. It's been one of the biggest threats to freedom in my lifetime, maybe the biggest in terms of how it was imposed. And I think had Florida not stood up against a lot of this, I think it would have been much worse across the country. And it likely would have persisted a lot longer. So sometimes you just got to say, okay, is this something that we want in our state at all? Or do we want to just say, let individuals be the ultimate arbiter of these decisions? And so that's how we've come down.
Likewise, school choice. Florida now leads on school choice. You
school
have
choice.
$8,000 that any parent can take to a private school. They can switch to another public school. Why is this good?
Well, ultimately, it empowers people, particularly low-income families and a lot of single mothers who are working but don't have enough money to necessarily send their kid to the school of their choice. And so
I like
you
Ron
now
DeSantis
have that
a lot.
ability in Florida. And we've had school choice for
He's
a while,
really
but we've really expanded
solid
it.
dude. I don't know.
Here's why I think it's worked. The public schools have improved in Florida as a result of school choice. You think, well, wait a minute. You as a parent may be going out of the public school. How's the public school doing better? Because when they know
because of that.
Exactly. When they know the parents have empowerment to make a choice, they have to up their game because they want to attract students too. So if you look in school districts in Florida, most of the school districts offer intra-district school choice programs. So in a place like Miami-Dade, 70% of our students go to a school
70%.
other than their neighborhood public school. Some of it's private scholarship, some of it's public charter schools, but even within the school district, they're going to magnet programs or specialty programs. And so I think what's happened, it's created a culture of competition where school districts, charter schools, and private schools compete for parents' basic approval. And they know that a parent's empowered. If you're not doing a good job, the parent actually has the ability to vote with their feet and send their kid somewhere else.
And competition does make us all better.
Absolutely. When you have a monopoly, what incentive do you have to offer new things or to innovate? You don't have any incentive to do that. In Florida, you do. And of course, the money follows the kid. So just from a financial perspective, the school district wants to attract as many people because if they don't, then they wouldn't have as much per student.
So again, if you believe in choice, why have a rule that says no school can require masks? If you have a bunch of scared parents who want that, why can't they?
Because it's irrational to force a
Who
kid
are
to
you
wear.
to decide it's irrational?
Because we've watched the science and we've watched it. And here's the thing. What happened with COVID was hysteria took over evidence-based analysis. And so when we saw the hysteria, to have these kids in masks that are 6 or 7 years old, nobody had ever said or proven that that was effective. It was just being done.
Low key, I
out of
agree with
fear.
John
And so our
Stossel.
view is the policy shouldn't be based on fear.
But I also
Now,
agree with
parent wants to send their kid, and our Parents' Bill of Rights, they can do
DeSantis.
that, but it cannot be required for a student to do it. And I'll tell you, when we said you couldn't mandate it, guess how many kids decided to keep wearing masks? Very few decided to do it. So if it was something that was so good, then how come 90% of them immediately ditched the mask? And here's the thing.
True.
We can argue about whether masks work. I don't think the cloth masks have proven to work. However, even if you think they work, you have to wear it properly. A first grader is not wearing this mask properly. It's crumpled in, it's this, it's that. And so we just had to say, no. And so I think we were right to do that. If a parent wants to send their kid with it, they're allowed to send their kid with it. It just can't be required of them by the government.
Immigration.
Oh,
what
nice.
would you do about the border?
Well, I would immediately declare a national emergency. I would mobilize all departments, including the Department of Defense. I would reinstitute things like Remain in Mexico. I mean, look, part of the reason you have what's coming across the border
Fire,
is because
dude.
people know if they
DeSantis
just come
is
across
fire.
illegally, they get to stay. Well, of course, then they're going to want to come. So if you say no, if you come illegally, you're not going to be able to allow entry. You're going to remain in Mexico. And I'd also probably do something on the
He's a
executive
really good
side
governor.
to just say, because most of these are bogus asylum claims. We're just not going to entertain an asylum claim coming across the southern border, because what's happening is a lot of these people are traveling through multiple countries to get, and normally if you're seeking asylum, that first safe country you go to, that's when you apply. But instead,
True.
they're kind of abusing the asylum for a free ticket into the
True.
United States. I do think you need a border wall, because we don't have enough resources to police that whole wall. And so or the whole border. So the wall will channel people into the ports of entry where
True.
you can have personnel and you can keep the country secure.
And to make this point,
I really like Ron DeSantis a lot. I'm Ron DeSantis 2024. I think Ron DeSantis will be a very good president. I like Ron DeSantis a lot. I think he will be a better president than Trump. I voted for Trump in 2016, and then I voted for Trump again in 2020. And I thought Trump did an amazing job in 2016. And then post-COVID, warp speed, vaccines, corona, I thought he did a terrible job handling the pressure and everything coming on top of him. But DeSantis talked about the border. He talked about the whole entire government agency system to go and attack, to go and fix the border. So that's what I love about Ron DeSantis. He is extremely intelligent. I would say one of the most intelligent guys out there. I know for a fact Teddy Roosevelt was extremely intelligent. 1900s, big spectacles, big dork, read hours and hours and hours and hours of books. So Teddy Roosevelt was extremely intelligent, went to the Midwest, became a cowboy, fell in love with the country, and fought with the Indians and the whole Wild Wild West. It's a very beautiful biography, but I like Ron DeSantis' intelligence, and I like his very extreme thinking when it comes to solving issues. He gets straight to the point. He doesn't take things personal. A lot of women I notice are very scared of Ron DeSantis. They're really freaked out by him. They call him a psychopath. I received so many comments, by the way, that he's a serial killer, blood on his hands. He has a death stare. Like, people are very, very afraid of him. They think he'll run like a Guantanamo Bay type prison everywhere in the country. People really believe, with his extreme radical thinking, that Ron DeSantis will literally won't stop, kind of like one of those Christians who are extremists, who do everything in the name of God, unquote, in the name of Jesus, unquote. So a lot of people think Ron DeSantis will do everything in the name of doing the right thing. And John Stauso said, well, wait a minute, isn't that my freedom? I see where he was coming from. At the same time, Ron DeSantis is no BS. It's kind of a lot of gray area there. A lot of people I know will disagree, and a lot of people don't like Ron DeSantis. I'm pro Ron DeSantis. I think he'll be a great president. And frankly, I do think he's a bit in that category of extremes, but that's what I really like about him. He takes what I think, what I feel, what I believe, policy-wise, America-wise. He's extremely intelligent. Someone said he's a smarter version of Donald Trump. So he's very cunning, charming. He's young. He has a beautiful wife, Casey DeSantis. I think she'll be a great first lady. Also very young, very beautiful. I like Floridians a lot. I've been meeting a lot of Floridians. And that's basically it. I know I will make future videos about Ron DeSantis, but let me know what you guys think. Hit a thumbs up. I need you to like, donate through my Cash App. You can send me $20, $5. All right. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.